Picture this. A bottle, weathered by time, washes ashore on the cold, rugged coast of Nova Scotia, where the wind howls and the sea churns under a steel-gray sky. Inside, nestled in layers of worn, salt-stained linen, lies a letter, brittle, yellowed, its ink fading, dated April 18th, 1912, just 3 days after the Titanic sank into the icy depths. The name on the letter? It appears on no passenger list, no survivor testimonies, no record of any kind. It's as if this man never existed. Yet his words, they carry a weight, a truth that lingers like a ghost. This is the forgotten letter of a man who claims to have survived the Titanic. A man who chose to vanish, to fade into the shadows of history, never to be found.
I don't know if this letter will ever reach another soul. I don't know if it will be read or simply rot inside the sea, as I probably should have. But if it does, know this: the history you've heard is not the full truth. My name is not important. It never was. I was just a worker, a coal trimmer in the belly of the Titanic. We weren't passengers. We were shadows. We made her move while the world above dined and danced. Their laughter echoed through the steel walls that caged us. I came from a small village in Ireland, a place of damp stone walls and endless rain. My father was a fisherman, my mother a weaver. They taught me to work hard, to keep my head down, to expect nothing but the ache of labor. When I heard of the Titanic, they called it a marvel, a floating city, unsinkable, they said. I signed on, not for glory, but for a few coins to send home. I was nobody, just another pair of hands to feed the furnaces. Down in the boiler rooms, we were a brotherhood of sorts. Men from all corners, Irish, Scottish, Italians, bound by sweat and coal dust. We shared stories in the dim light, our voices drowned by the roar of the fires. We were invisible, but we were alive. That night, April 14th, everything changed. It started with a jolt, not dramatic, more like a subtle shiver through the hull. Most above probably didn't notice. But down there below deck, we felt it, the vibration, the silence that followed. The furnaces hissed, the coal piles shifted. We looked at each other, eyes wide, not daring to speak. Then the water came fast, faster than any of us expected. It poured through seams, black and cold, swallowing our boots. I remember the metallic screams of the ship, like it was alive and it knew it was dying. The walls groaned, pipes burst, steam scalded the air. People above were told to stay calm. Music played. Violins, soft and mocking, drifting down to us. Officers shouted orders. Lifeboats were lowered, half empty, while women and children wept. But below it was chaos. No one told us what to do. No one came for us. We weren't meant to survive. There were gates locked tight, barring our way to the decks above. No alarms rang for us, just the rising black sea, relentless, hungry. I saw men I'd laughed with hours before. Tommy with his crooked smile, Marco who sang off-key, crushed by falling beams, pulled under by the rushing tide. Their faces haunt me, their voices swallowed by the cold. I can still hear Tommy shouting my name, begging me to pull him free. I tried. My hand slipped. He was gone. Somehow, I made it out. I can't even tell you how. A bulkhead door failed, jammed halfway. Its iron warped by the pressure. I slipped through, soaking, coughing, lost in steam and shouting. The corridors were a maze, flooding fast, the walls closing in. My heart pounded, my lungs burned. I climbed ladders, slipped on wet steel, pushed past men running in every direction. Some prayed, some cursed, some just stood, staring at the water as if it could be reasoned with. I kept moving, driven by something I can't name. Fear, instinct, or maybe shame for wanting to live. And then I found it, a lifeboat. It had launched already, but its rope was tangled, caught on a davit. It hovered just over the waterline. They were trying to cut it free. Their knives flashed in the dark. No one noticed me climb in from the side. Or maybe they did, but no one said a word. I curled up in the bottom, my soaked uniform clinging to me, my breath ragged. We drifted, the boat rocking in the icy swell. The screams from the ship faded, replaced by a silence heavier than the sea itself. I saw the Titanic split, her lights flickering like dying stars. I'll never forget the sound, like the earth tearing open. A roar that shook my bones. That wasn't in the papers. You'll read about a graceful sinking, about orderly evacuations and noble sacrifices. You'll see clean timelines, but the truth is uglier. There were arguments, fights breaking out in the dark, men shoving to reach the boats, shots fired, sharp cracks echoing over the water. One officer, his face pale under his cap, took his own life. I saw it on deck near the last collapsible boat. He stood alone, raised his pistol, and then nothing. They don't talk about him. They don't talk about how the crew panicked too, how fear made monsters of us all, because heroes make better headlines than terrified men. Hours passed. The cold gnawed at our skin, seeping into our bones. The stars were cruel, bright, and indifferent above us. I thought of my mother, her hands weaving by candlelight, her voice telling me to come home safe. I thought of the men I'd left behind, their eyes pleading as the water took them. Why me? Why did I survive when they didn't? The guilt was heavier than the cold, heavier than the sea. Then lights appeared. The Carpathia, a beacon in the dawn. I couldn't get on board. I couldn't. I still wore my crew uniform, the blackened rags of a fireman, marked by coal and shame. They'd ask who I was, why I wasn't on the manifest. They'd arrest me, or worse, blame me. Sabotage, immigrant rage, the kind of lies they tell about men like me. You know how they think. So I slipped away. Another boat, smaller. A fishing trawler from the Newfoundland coast. They found me clinging to driftwood. I said I was British, a fisherman whose boat capsized in the storm. They believed me, or chose to. They fed me, gave me dry clothes, took me ashore. No questions. I stood on that rocky shore, the wind biting my face, and realized I was free, not just from the sea, but from my past. I could be anyone or no one. I chose no one. Since then, I've worked under different names: John, Michael, Thomas, moving from town to town, dock to dock, silent, invisible like I always was. I've shoveled coal in Halifax, mended nets in Liverpool, hauled crates in Boston. Each job, each name, a new mask to hide the man I was. But no matter where I go, I carry that night. Every face, every scream, every second of it lives in me. I see Tommy's crooked smile when I close my eyes. I hear Marco's off-key song in the wind. I feel the cold of the Atlantic in my bones, even on the warmest days. The papers print stories of brave men and noble farewells. They call the Titanic unsinkable until it wasn't. They write of first-class heroes, of women and children saved, of orchestras playing to the end, but they don't write about us, the shadows below deck, the men who kept her moving, who died without a headline. That ship was never built for all of us. It was built for the wealthy, the celebrated, the ones whose names fill the memorials. We were expendable, our lives worth less than the coal we shoveled. I've heard the world mourn the Titanic, seen the wreaths laid. The speeches given, they speak of tragedy, of lessons learned. But what lessons? The gates are still locked in one way or another. The world still sees men like me as shadows, immigrants, laborers, invisible until something breaks. I've walked past churches where they pray for the lost, but no one prays for the forgotten. No one prays for the men who drowned in the dark, their names unrecorded, their stories untold. Sometimes I wonder what my mother thinks happened to me. Did she hear of the sinking and assume I was gone? Did she light a candle, whisper my name? I've wanted to write to her, to tell her I'm alive. But what would I say? That I survived by chance, by cowardice, by climbing into a boat meant for others? That I live in shadows because I'm afraid of the light? I can't bear to burden her with that truth, so I stay silent, carrying her memory instead. Her voice a faint echo in my heart. I don't know why I'm writing this now. Maybe it's to unburden my soul, to set down the weight of that night. Maybe it's to speak for Tommy, for Marco, for all the men whose voices were silenced. If you're reading this, don't look for me. I'm already lost. But remember the silence that followed the scream. Remember the locked gates that kept us below. Remember that even the greatest marvels of man can crack and sink into the dark. And sometimes the ones who survive are the ones who were never meant to. Don't pity me. Pity the world that forgets its shadows.
Some letters change history, others haunt it, lingering like ghosts in the shadows of time. We may never know who this man was, this fireman who poured his soul into words meant for the sea. There are no records, no family claims, no trace of his existence, beyond this brittle, yellowed page. Yet his words echo through the years, like the final mournful notes of a violin fading over the dark, icy waters. Was he real? Or was this letter a desperate cry for truth? A whisper from a soul the world forgot? His story speaks of the unseen, the unheard. Men who toiled in the Titanic's heart, their lives erased by the waves. We may never find him, but his voice refuses to be silenced. If this tale stirred your heart, subscribe to Forgotten Letters. And give this video a like so we can keep uncovering the voices that time tried to bury. Until the next letter, keep listening to the whispers of history that still call from the deep.